So welcome. What we hope to address today is, does having good posture even matter? What issues can result from having poor posture? And what are some simple ways that we're going to do to improve that posture? So your posture and movement can tell, a lot about how healthy your brain and your body are. Have you ever seen anyone walking around here, we were just looking way down, and you said, boy, that guy's or gal's healthy as can be. Have you ever thought to yourself they're healthy? It's kind of like instinctually. We understand, that poor posture is poor health. But studies definitely prove that as well, okay? There's plenty of studies that prove that posture can affect everything. Breathing to thinking, hormone production to digestion. But postural neurology is what I've been trained in to understand kind of where our postural patterns affect our brain. We're going to get into that a little bit. But your structure is going to dictate your function. Just like a car or any, machine. If it's not properly lined up or properly in the right structure, it's going to function poorly or probably break down, or eventually wear out. Right? So your structure definitely dictates function. There's a natural position that guarantees that efficiency, of movement. And we're going to talk a little bit basic again. I'll just remind you about how that should look. But just know that there's that natural position, that ideal position. Your internal organs run right alongside that ideal position. Prolonged restrictions or deviations, from that ideal is going to result in dysfunction. It's subluxation. A misalignment of your spine posturally as well as individually can start to lead to dysfunction and disease ultimately. So from the side, just to remind you, your spine should have 3 curves to it. Maintaining those curves in an upright position would put your ear over your shoulder over your hip over your ankle. Okay, so you'll be able to draw a line from your malleolus, which is that bone in your ankle. Hey, you guys see that? And it should go right up to the hip, through the shoulder, and through the ear. In an ideal world, that would help these curvatures stay at their ideal 40-ish degrees. They're actually a little bit different depending where you are, but those like that spring to gravity's pressure. And when we think of poor posture, a lot of times we think sideways. Remember though, posture also means that I should be able to take a line from in between my ankles, the middle point of my stance, and go right through my pubic bone, right through my sternum, right through my nose, and right on up. Okay? And so a lot of people, if you really look, they're not on that plumb line either. All right? But those are all the ideal position we should be in. So we have habits that put us starting to look like these people in different ways. Depending if we stand all day, our hips may shift forward. We may sit a lot throughout the day and our head just comes forward. We kind of have a flat back. We may have too much of a curve and a forward head. So there's lots of different variations, but the key is looking at that ideal alignment there. That's why I wanted to just kind of bring that up. Posture doesn't just change how you look, it changes how you live ultimately. People, they've been told by people who sell things that they only do things because they either want to look better or feel better. It's the only reason people spend money. If it's a preventative long-term health situation that could benefit, if it's not some immediate changes to some degree, people don't usually continue to spend money on it. It's just the way that it is. They want to look better, feel better, or move better, sleep better. So energy-wise, as part of that, your energy can be increased by improving your posture. So what causes some of our poor posture that we see? When there is poor posture, which typically a lot of times, yes, it's because this person that's at the desk there, that's going to happen because of the fact that they're there not sitting on the back of the chair properly. As you can kind of see, number one, you can see this person's back isn't even touching the chair. So one of the first steps is, how do we help improve so that you're making sure when you sit down, you sit so your buttock lands all the way at the edge of that chair right there. That's number one. And these poor postures long term start to lead to a lot of things. Shallow breathing. Let's do this. So I want everyone to get on the edge of your chair and sit like this girl is right here. Just kind of, just go ahead and slouch down a little bit. And I want you to take a really deep breath in. Try to hold it for a second. Go and let that out. Do it again and let that out. Just kind of remember how much air volume you feel like you take in. Now, I want you to sit all the way back to the edge of the chair. Real tall, head tall, so like there's a string attached to the top of your head and it's pulling you up so you have these curves. I want you to take that breath in again, okay? And let it out. Could you feel a difference in the volume of air? Truly. I'm not just making that up. And when you are here, your diaphragm is inhibited. You're not able to use it. Think about how many breaths we take a day. And if we're stuck in a shallow breathing where we're using a lot of these muscles, that not only is getting minimal air in, which means we have to breathe more often throughout the day, we're probably not getting the amount of oxygen every breath that we could. So your heart's working harder, your lungs are working harder. And if you had a finite amount of time your heart's going to beat, it's beating longer or more often just because because of your posture. So shallow breathing is not just shallow breathing. It can affect the quality of our life big time, big time. So just think about that. Think about that little exercise. A couple different things too. Balance and coordination problems. If I had a bowling ball and I was holding it right now, and I was told to just hold it as long as I could, where would I hold it? I'd hold it as close to me as I could and as middle of my center of gravity as I could. So imagine though, if I took the bowling ball, I said, okay, now I just want you to hold this as long as you could, and I had you do this. Like even a 15-pound ball, I don't think you're lasting long. But that's where our heads are sometimes. I mean, an extreme example, far. And that bowling ball is the weight of our heads. Now imagine, most people in my office, they don't just have their head kind of forward. It's usually kind of off to one side. So imagine the pull and the tension on these muscles. Your body is that car that I've got it out of alignment. The tires are out of alignment at that point. And if I run that car enough miles, I'm going to wear the tires out unevenly or sooner on one side than another. And that's our bodies wearing out because of that position of the head. So just remember that your balance and coordination are being so affected by where that center of gravity is as well. So thinking that bowling ball, my point was, if I shifted it over and forward, where's your balance? But your body's working so hard. So when I start to adjust people, even the adjustments themselves are so powerful because they tune the body back in to itself. And it doesn't, when it gets better in alignment because of the adjustment, your body isn't putting extra effort and energy just to keep you from falling over. It can put that energy toward healing and function, and that's the key. Because 90% of your body's nervous system is dedicated to the function of your body. The digestion, the breathing, balance. That's all the nerves that are going on, and you don't feel pain with those. Those are just the function, okay? So posture is a huge connection to all these things. I feel like a generation or two ago, moms would be, sit up. There was you learn proper classes, and I wasn't part of this generation. My mom, maybe my mom's mom, I'm going to say, we're part of a generation where that showed importance and structure and properness. We've totally gotten rid of that, but just think about this too. What's a kid who's in school, if they're not really engaged in the lecture, what's their posture look like? Forward or, something. A teacher immediately look and be like, well, they don't care what's going on. So your posture tells a lot. But think about this too. When someone is alert and engaged, not only are they holding better posture, and you see that, it's actually helping their brain work better. And that's what we're learning with the neurology of posture, is that when your body's upright and open, you actually have less cortisol or stress hormone. Your brain has increased blood flow, and it's actually more alert and aware. So it's not just like I'm doing it to look good. It's because we forget, but our body's connected with our structure and our function again, okay? So this is what the statement has to do with, is the fact of how this is just so connected in our own practices daily. So how do we improve it? How do we improve and support the brain and the body? Well, let's just talk about some of those simplicity first. If I were to kind of go over some of the most basic things, I found that there are simple tools that I just love to use, and I always go back to the posture disc a lot of times. This disc, when sat on, it actually keeps your discs of your spine hydrated, because when you pump side to side, front to back, and go in circles, you're hydrating those discs because you're individually moving those joints. And if I just sit and don't move, well, those joints aren't getting any kind of hydration, and they're eventually decaying and deteriorating. And so the disc helps you to keep mobile. It helps you stay mobile even if you're sitting and working to some degree. You can keep moving. What the benefit too of sitting on it is it is unstable. So what do I have to use? Your core. We want it unstable. We don't want it. That's what they say. Did you guys ask me, what chair do I buy? Well, there's just so many chairs, but you want a chair that kind of does remind you to get up, honestly. You don't want a chair that's so comfortable that you never have to leave, because ultimately your body's just decaying from lack of motion. So this disc helps move. I also, a lot of times I'll use it right behind me if I'm tired of sitting on it, and I can just be a little back support. It keeps that arch in there from me slouching back, okay? So the posture disc to me is worth its weight in gold. The other thing, the mirror is huge, or posture. I've taken pictures of yourself. If you have a significant other, or just take a picture of yourself, analyzing and looking at it is just awesome, because you don't get that feedback of what you look like unless you see it. That's why we take our pictures every 8 to 10 visits in our office. But you want to retrain your awareness, put mirrors around or ways you can start seeing yourself. But you've got to stay away, because when you get into working, when you're not conscious of your posture, it very likely will go the wrong direction, especially if you're not getting adjusted, you're not doing exercises, you're not trying to retrain it, then gravity is going to tune it down. Just gravity's going to win that battle. So setting up a workstation is very important. The knees and hips should be at 90 degrees typically, maybe 120, but nothing too much more than that. You want to sit tall. You want to have that back support back there. Just like this lady's looking, hands and wrists should be right in alignment there. A lot of what you're using should be right in front of you. So, the keyboard should be in the ideal place where you don't really have to move to get to the mouse or the keyboard. I think the biggest thing really is ergonomic workstation is huge, and I'm all for it. Oh, last thing, the monitor, this would be the last because I'm kind of breezing through this one, is the monitor really the middle of the monitor probably should be almost to your eye level, which is pretty high, right? But if you look straight ahead, that monitor, middle of the monitor should be middle of the eyes there. So you guys take a picture, you can measure, but a little bit down, but not much. You want that about there. Be careful if too high too, because people with bifocals, if they start doing this kind of thing, that actually give you headaches by doing too much of this looking down. So you got to work with what your glasses you're wearing and where you're looking and things. But the big thing is things in front of you is what you should use the most. So if you do have so many things you have to kind of go to the sides, those should be less often. This should be more often in front. Those are simple tools. Yeah, to me, more important than how I'd set up the station, like I think I told you guys, I'd get a hard wooden chair, because it'll make you get up very often, and maybe or a standing desk. I didn't talk about that, but that was kind of the other option is working this is if you can stand probably 3 times as long as you sit, you're better off than just sitting all the time. Even if you have the disc here, I still think you're better off, but the breaks is just huge. Every 30 to 60 minutes, you should have some sort of alarm, some sort of way you just say, I have to take a break. And just like your adjustments, let's say you have a week that you can't get here. What do? We make them up the next week, right? So same thing with the breaks. If you had to pound through some heavy meetings and you just couldn't really get up because everyone's watching you or whatever, well, now you've just accumulated 10 or 20 minutes of time that you can't go sit back down, right? If you didn't do a break every hour, well, now you have to add those breaks together and do a longer one somehow. But here's my rule of thumb. I'd say at least for every hour, we'll say even, hour, I would be doing at least a minute or 2 of like traction or the opposite direction. So if I'm here for an hour, I'm kind of hunched forward and I'm looking there, then I better do about a minute or 2 of some sort of relaxation, hang my head off the edge of the bed. The fulcrum kit would be so you can lay on the ground and just traction back. You can put your head back here, you could put off the edge of the bed, but I want to be spending at least a minute breathing deep, relaxing, using my diaphragm, extending everything. My head, my shoulders, my arms. With the fulcrum kit, you're going to be laying on the ground. So if I'm in a slouch position, well, when I lay on these, I've now got, it's kind of backwards. I've got curves now laying on the ground and I'm getting curves back. So tractioning for at least a minute or 2. So a minute for every 10, at least 10 minutes a day of traction to undo gravitational forces. If you want to change it, you got to do more than that, okay? That's just a good rule to think about. Practice active posture when you're moving. When I taught more of the posture classes, we would always add breathing to the motions, because when you breathe and move, your brain really gets tuned into healing and you're holding better posture. So the breath and the movement in good posture really is kind of like that involved me and I learned idea. If I just try to hold it or stretch, I'm kind of only doing about a 1 component of your full body's function throughout the day. We need to breathe, we need to move. And that's huge, okay? So practice those active postures when during motion. Daily posture scans. Just take a look. If I'm standing and you know what? Maybe something reminds me, my hips are way up there. I'm gonna just pull those back. I'm gonna pull that string right to the top of my head and maintain, okay? Those are what we really want to do. Is my head way forward? Oh man, get that back. The cross crawl exercises are great. Those as simple as just kind of bringing here, even. Those things are really good little retraining for things. Balance training is awesome. We used to do a workshop just on balance. Balance takes core strength, takes good alignment, and and it takes that good balance receptors in your foot. And the more that you train those, the better your posture is, and holding good posture too. We used to people, I'd tell them that worked here, and they were doing all kinds of things. So we want them to have good posture and holding that. Okay, so those are huge things. The core is a huge part of, again, good posture is core. It starts from the core. Without a good support, then your body has a lot of different avenues. Planks, bird dogs, and bridges. Almost everyone gets these, I think, to begin with. Wall angels, I haven't given those as much as I used to, but there's on exercises I give on sheets. I basically have people lay down face down and they're pumping their arms back. That's a good way to try to strengthen the weak muscles, because when you're forward all day long here, these muscles just get stretched and weak. These get too tight in the front. So one thing I'd always tell everyone is stretch your chest out in the doorway, or at the minimum sitting at the desk just like this. It's Berger's exercise, which is on the other sheets we give, but trying to stretch your chest out and then strengthening that middle back by just laying face down every day. A lot of these we've given stuff too. You know, the diaphragmatic breathing, we talked about the benefits of there. Your feet are your foundation. So just as a kind of a side note, if you guys remember, we give you your foot scans in your folder and you see the little body example and it kind of is doing all these sort of things. Your feet can affect a lot of this too. So if you're really trying to support that in the long term, your feet are definitely needed. For most people probably have lost some arch in their foot, and that affects their posture too. So just remember that. You guys, thanks for coming.